The distress beacon had been active for 11 hours before Captain Cole Harlan decided to answer it. Not because he was soft, not because he had forgotten the war, but because the coordinates placed the signal inside neutral space, and Cole Harlan had not survived 4 years of the Keth siege by ignoring things that did not add up. He brought the ship in low. The wreckage was bad. A Velthari cruiser, mid-class, split clean through the middle like something had bitten it in half. The forward section was still pressurized, barely. Life signs: 1. Faint. Getting fainter. "Zara, suit up," he said. His pilot, Zara Lynn, looked at him from across the cockpit. She was 26 and had the eyes of someone twice that age. "You want to board a Velthari wreck?" "I want to retrieve the survivor." "Cole, the Velthari embassy filed a formal complaint against you 8 months ago. You are literally on their restricted contact list." "Good thing this one looks too unconscious to complain." Zara put on her suit. The survivor was female. Velthari. Tall, even crumpled against the wall like that. With the pale blue-gray skin their species carried, and the secondary eyelids that flickered when Cole crouched beside her. Her uniform was military. Officer rank, if he remembered Velthari insignia correctly. One arm was pinned under a collapsed support strut. Her breathing was shallow and wrong. "She's in shock," Zara said through the helmet comm. "Blood pressure is crashing." Cole pulled the strut off her arm with both hands. It weighed about what a small car weighed. He set it aside. The Velthari woman's secondary eyelids snapped open. She looked at him. Her primary eyes, deep amber, wide, locked onto his face with an expression that was equal parts confusion and animal terror. He had seen that look before. On refugees, on survivors, on people who had stopped expecting help and were no longer sure what to do with it. "You're safe," he said. "We're getting you out." She tried to speak. What came out was Velthari, low and broken, and his translator implant lagged 3 seconds before rendering it. "Vessel destroyed. My crew. They are all gone." "I know," he said. "I'm sorry." She looked at him like that was the last thing she had expected him to say. They got her back to the ship. Zara handled the medical scanner while Cole stripped off his suit. The damage was a fractured forearm, 2 cracked ribs, a concussion, and the beginning of hypoxic stress on her secondary respiratory system. Velthari had 2. Humans had 1. It was one of the reasons the Keth had assumed humans were structurally inferior. The Keth had been wrong about a lot of things. "She needs rest, warmth, and oxygen enrichment," Zara said, "and not to be in the cargo bay." The ship had 3 rooms: cockpit, cargo bay, and Cole's bunk room. Zara had a hammock in the cockpit by choice, which she claimed was more comfortable and which Cole privately believed was so she could watch the stars while she slept. That left one option. "Put her in my room," Cole said. Zara stared at him. "She needs the bed and the environmental controls. Set the oxygen mix to Velthari standard and keep the temperature up. I'll sleep in the cargo bay." "You are aware," Zara said carefully, "that when she wakes up and finds out a human male installed her in his personal quarters, she is going to have approximately 900 cultural objections." "Probably," Cole said. "She can file them when she's not dying." He carried the Velthari woman down the corridor himself. She was unconscious again, her head against his shoulder, one hand loosely fisted in the front of his jacket, like even out cold she was holding on to something. He set her on the bunk. Zara adjusted the environmental controls. Cole pulled the blanket over her and stepped back. The amber eyes opened again, just barely. She looked at him, at the room, at the bunk she was lying in, Something moved behind her expression that his translator could not reach. "Sleep," he said. "You're safe here." She closed her eyes. Cole went to sleep on a folded tarp in the cargo bay and did not think about it any further than that. The Velthari woman's name was Cyril. Commander Cyril Voss, 3rd Fleet, Border Patrol Division. She told him this the next morning when she was sitting upright in the bunk with her fractured arm splinted and her color returned to something closer to normal, watching him with those amber eyes that gave nothing away. "Cole Harlan," he said from the doorway. "Captain, independent vessel." "I know who you are," she said. The translator rendered it flat, but something in her tone was not flat. "The human who would not yield at Keth Station 4, she said. "The Keth called you a name, and in their language it translates roughly as the one who does not stop. I've heard worse. It was not intended as a compliment. I've heard that too." She looked at him for a long moment. Outside, the stars moved past the small porthole above the bunk, slow and indifferent. "You gave me your bed," she said. "You needed it more." "That is not—" She stopped. Started again. "Among my people, a private sleeping space is considered deeply personal. To offer it to a stranger, particularly an enemy. We're not at war anymore. We were never at war. Our governments were at war. There is a difference that most humans do not bother to make." Cole leaned against the doorframe. "You're right. There is." She looked at him again. The secondary eyelids flickered twice. "Why did you answer my beacon?" she said. "It's because it was on. Many ships passed. I tracked them on the emergency sensors before the power dropped. 14 vessels in 11 hours. None of them stopped." Cole said nothing. "You were the 15th, she said. "And you are the one human in this sector with documented cause to leave a Velthari officer to die." "Documented cause," Cole said, "is not the same as a reason." Cyril Voss looked at him for a long time after that. The stars moved. The ship hummed. Outside, the wreckage of her cruiser drifted in the direction of nowhere in particular. She said quietly, in Velthari, and the translator caught it a beat late. "I do not understand you." Cole pushed off the doorframe. "Hungry?" he said. "Zara makes something she calls protein hash. It's not as bad as it sounds. That is an extraordinarily low bar." "Yeah," he said. "But she tries hard." The secondary eyelids flickered again. This time, it looked different. He did not know Velthari well enough to name what different meant. He went to tell Zara to make extra. The nearest station was 2 days out. Cole filed the pickup report, flagged Cyril's military status for the Velthari embassy notification system, and did not tell Cyril about the flag because she was already tense enough, and 2 days was 2 days, and there was no use borrowing trouble. What he did not anticipate was the other ship. It appeared on scanners at hour 31. No transponder, no hail, running dark in a way that was not an accident. "Keth configuration," Zara said, very quietly, from the pilot seat. Cole was already moving. The Keth had lost the war. Just that was the official position of 7 governments and the interspecies accord. What the accord did not cover was the Keth who had decided the war's end was a technicality. Operating in the margins of neutral space with old weapons and new grudges and a specific documented hatred for the human captain who had held Keth Station 4 for 19 days against a force 8 times his size and walked out the other end. The one who does not stop. Cole strapped into the weapons seat. "Cyril," he called down the corridor. She appeared in the doorway a breath later, one hand on the frame, reading the tension in the cockpit the way a soldier reads terrain. "We have company," he said. "Keth. Probably here for me. Possibly here because they scanned a Velthari life sign and want to finish what they started with your ship." He looked at her. "No, either way, we're not running." "I did not ask you to run," she said. "I know." He turned back to the console. "I just wanted to be clear about what you walked into." Cyril Voss crossed the cockpit and sat in the secondary systems chair without being invited. Her splinted arm moved across the controls with a precision that said the fracture was an inconvenience and nothing more. "I have full certification on interspecies tactical systems," she said. "Tell me what you need." Zara glanced back at Cole. Cole looked at the scanner. The Keth ship was accelerating. "Shields and point defense," he said. "Zara flies. I shoot. You keep us from falling apart." "Understood," Cyril said. The Keth ship fired first. They always did. Cole fired back. The next 40 minutes were not clean or elegant. They were loud and pressurized and full of the particular kind of focus that leaves no room for anything else, where the body runs on something older than thought and the mind becomes a single narrow point, aimed at the problem directly in front of it. The Keth vessel was faster. Cole's ship was more maneuverable. Zara was better than anyone gave her credit for, cutting angles that should not have worked and making them work through sheer bloody-minded insistence. Cyril routed power with the calm efficiency of someone who had done this in worse conditions and expected to do it in worse conditions again. They took hits. 3 of them. Nothing catastrophic. The 4th one clipped the rear stabilizer, and Zara swore in 3 languages, 2 of them ones Cole had not heard her use before. Cole put the next shot into the Keth ship's engine housing. The ship stopped firing. It did not explode. It drifted, disabled. The Keth crew would be alive, if unhappy, and would be broadcasting a distress signal within the hour that someone official would respond to. That was not Cole's problem. His problem was the stabilizer. "How bad?" he said. Zara pulled up the damage report. Her jaw tightened. "We're not making the station in 2 days," she said. "We're making it in 4, maybe 5. And we need to drop out of the main lanes to do the repair work, or we lose the stabilizer entirely." Cole nodded, turned. Cyril was watching him from the secondary chair. A thin line of dark blood traced down from her hairline where something had caught her during the fight. She had not mentioned it. She was not mentioning it now. "Change of plans," Cole said. "It's going to be a longer trip." "I noticed," she said. "You still good?" She touched the blood at her temple, looked at her fingers. "I have had worse mornings." "Yeah," Zara said, turning back to the nav console. "You're going to fit in fine." Cyril looked at Zara, looked at Cole. Something moved behind her expression again, the same thing that had no name in his translator's dictionary. Cole went to get the med kit. They dropped into a slow drift pattern 2 hours later, while Zara crawled through the access panels and used language that made the hull panels rattle. Cole sat outside the engineering hatch with a torch and passed her tools when she asked for them and did not talk much because Zara fixed things better in silence. Cyril sat across the corridor with her back against the wall and watched. "You do not help?" she said after a while. "She doesn't like help," Cole said. "She likes proximity. There's a difference." Cyril tilted her head. A Velthari gesture he had seen before, meaning roughly, "I am calibrating this information." "You know her well," Cyril said. 2 years on a small ship. That is a significant amount of time in a confined space with another person. "It is," Cole agreed. "Does it not?" She paused, chose words. "Among my people, Extended close proximity creates what we call veth, a kind of relational gravity. It becomes difficult to separate. Zara and I are not together, Cole said. If that's what you're asking. I was not asking. Okay. A beat. I was, Surreal said, observing. Cole handed Zara a wrench through the hatch. Zara said something rude and grateful, and the sound of metal on metal resumed. She is more comfortable with you than with me, Surreal said. You've been here 30 hours. The distrust runs deeper than 30 hours. Cole looked at her. The blood on her temple had dried. She had refused to let him do more than clean it. The war, he said. The war, she agreed. And everything before it? The Velthari and human governments were at odds for 60 years before the Keth gave you both a common enemy. 60 years of closed borders and trade disputes and diplomatic incidents. My generation grew up being told humans were. She stopped. Ruthless, Cole said. She looked at him steadily. Yes, and now? She was quiet long enough that Zara's swearing filled the corridor twice over. I am recalibrating, Surreal said finally. Cole almost smiled. That's fair. She looked at his hands, the knuckles scarred, the way he held the torch loose and easy, like he had held worse things for longer. At Keth Station 4, she said, you had 40 people. 38 by the end. Against 300 Keth ground forces and 2 orbital support vessels. The math was not in our favor. You held for 19 days. 18 and a half, he said. The last 12 hours got messy. The Keth broadcast transmissions during the siege, Surreal said slowly. My unit intercepted some of them. They were... She paused. They were discussing you specifically, not your forces. You. They were attempting to determine what type of human you were. They could not classify you. I've been told I'm hard to categorize. They concluded you were defective, Surreal said. A human who did not understand when the situation was lost. Cole was quiet for a moment. Maybe they were right, he said. Or, Surreal said, maybe the situation was never as lost as they believed. Zara's hand appeared through the hatch. Cole passed her the socket set. Her hand disappeared. The beacon, Surreal said. On my ship. I activated it and then I stopped expecting a response. 11 hours is a long time to wait. I was not waiting, she said. I had moved past waiting. Cole looked at her. And then your ship appeared on my emergency sensors, she said. And I thought it was a malfunction. It wasn't. I know that now. The torch in Cole's hand hummed softly. The corridor was warm and close and smelled like engine oil and recycled air. You gave me your bed, Surreal said again. Not like she was repeating herself, like she was still solving it. You were hurt and it was available. You slept on the cargo bay floor. I've slept in worse places. That... She stopped. The secondary eyelids flickered 3 times in quick succession, a rapid pattern he had not seen before. Among my people, the gesture you made would carry significant meaning. What kind of meaning? She looked at him very directly. The kind that requires intent. I intended for you not to die on my floor, Cole said. That was the full scope of it. She studied him for a long moment, but the amber eyes were very steady. You are, she said carefully, a very difficult person to categorize. So, I've been told. From inside the hatch, Zara's voice floated out. He's also annoyingly decent, which is somehow worse than if he were just ruthless. At least, ruthless is simple. Sorrel looked at the hatch. then at Cole. The secondary eyelids flickered again. This time he was almost certain it was something like amusement. "I begin to see what she means," Sorrel said. The repair took 11 hours. When Zara finally emerged from the access panel, she was covered in grease and deeply satisfied. And she ate an entire container of protein hash without sitting down, and then announced she was going to sleep for 6 hours, and that Cole and Sorrel should not bother her unless something was actively exploding. She was asleep in her cockpit hammock in 4 minutes. The ship drifted in the slow repair pattern, engines at minimal power, stars moving past the portholes in their ancient, unhurried way. Cole made 2 cups of something hot that was not quite coffee, and not quite anything else, but was warm, and he brought one to Sorrel. And they sat at the small folding table in the corridor that technically served as the ship's common area, and technically was just a table with 2 bolted-down stools, and they did not talk for a while. "You were a soldier," Sorrel said eventually. "Still am, technically. Reserves. And now you move cargo. And passengers occasionally. And answer distress beacons that nobody else bothers with." She curved both hands around the cup. Her fractured arm was healing faster than a human's would have. A Velthari biology was efficient that way. "I've been in the military for 11 years, she said. "I have dealt with human officers through official channels, joint operations, prisoner exchanges, treaty negotiations." She paused. They were always very correct. But correct in the way that means they were managing the interaction, measuring every word, keeping the appropriate distance. Diplomatic. Yes. She looked at the cup. "You are not diplomatic." "No," Cole agreed. "You pulled a structural strut off my arm and told me I was safe and meant it." "I did mean it." "I know." She looked up. The amber eyes were direct in the way of someone who has decided that something is worth looking at directly. That is what is difficult to categorize. The stars drifted. The ship hummed. Somewhere in the cockpit, Aunt Zara made a small sound in her sleep and settled. "What will you do?" Cole said, "when we reach the station?" "File a report. Contact my command. Arrange transport back to fleet. And then? Return to duty, if they will have me. My ship is destroyed. My crew is gone." Something passed through her expression, quick and deep and not available to any translator. "That will need to be accounted for. It wasn't your fault. I was the commanding officer. And whoever hit you had a weapon you couldn't have anticipated in a location that wasn't on any patrol map. I checked the wreckage when we boarded." She looked at him. "You checked." "Of course I checked." She was quiet again. The secondary eyelids moved, slow this time, a long, deliberate blink. "Why?" she said. "Gian, because if someone is targeting Velthari border patrol ships in neutral space with undocumented weapons, that's a problem for everyone. Human and Velthari both." He turned the cup in his hands. "And because you were going to blame yourself the moment you were conscious enough to do it. And I wanted to know if the blame was warranted before you got there." Sorrel stared at him. "It wasn't," he said, "for what it's worth." She was silent for a long time. 11 years, she said finally. 11 years in the fleet, and no one has ever investigated my wreckage before I woke up from it. Seemed like the useful thing to do. "Yes," she said, very quietly. It was. The table was small. The corridor was narrow. They were closer than was technically necessary for a conversation. Cole picked up both cups and stood. "You should sleep. Well, now we've got 3 more days before the station." "Yes." She stood as well, which put her directly in his line of sight, and the amber eyes at a level that required him to look at them straight on, Cole Harlan. Yeah. Thank you, she said. Not for the bed, or the rescue, or the data on my wreckage, though all of that. She paused. For answering the beacon, when 14 others did not. He held her gaze for a moment. Get some rest, Commander. She nodded once, turned, walked to the bunk room, his bunk room, and closed the door quietly behind her. Cole stood in the corridor for a moment in the dark, in the hum and the drifting stars. Then he went back to the cargo bay, rolled out his tarp, and lay down on it, and did not think about amber eyes or secondary eyelids, or the particular way she had said his name, and he did not think about it for a long time. Then he slept. The station appeared on long-range sensors on the morning of the 4th day. Velthari diplomatic frequency was already broadcasting a priority signal for Commander Sorel Voss, which meant her command had been notified and was waiting, and the world outside was beginning to re-arrive. Sorel stood in the cockpit doorway and watched the station grow on the forward display. Her arm was almost fully healed. Her posture had returned to the straight military line it had probably held for 11 years. She looked like a commander again. She had looked like a person for 3 days, and now she was looking like a commander, and Cole could see the seam between the two things and noticed that he noticed it. Your people are waiting, Zara said from the pilot seat. Yes, Sorel said. She did not move. Zara shot Cole a look over her shoulder. Cole looked at the forward display. You'll want your official debrief, he said. The report I filed will have already flagged the dark-running Keth ship. They'll need coordinates. Yes, Sorel said again. She still did not move. Sorel, Cole said. She turned from the display and looked at him. The secondary eyelids were still. The amber eyes were not. The Keth data you gave me, she said. The weapon configuration, the undocumented patrol area. You compiled that from the wreckage scan. Yeah. That is classified intelligence acquisition, technically. Technically. You are still going to give it to me. Already in your personal comm, he said. Zara transferred it while you were sleeping. Something shifted in Sorel's face. A movement too small for a word and too large to miss. You are, she said, genuinely the most confusing human I have ever encountered. You said that before. I keep arriving at the same conclusion? From the pilot seat, Zara said with tremendous neutrality, We're 40 minutes from dock. The station was close now, its arms extending into space in the standard configuration, Velthari flags visible alongside the neutral station colors. There would be officials. There would be forms. There would be the careful, managed distance of correct diplomatic behavior, and it would close over this like water over a stone, and everything that had been would become something that had happened, filed under the category of unusual circumstances, not repeated. Cole knew how this went. He had lived in the margins of things long enough to recognize when the margins were ending. If you find anything, Sorel said, in your travels, anything relevant to what happened to my ship, I'll flag it through official channels. Official channels take 3 months. I'll flag it to you directly then. She looked at him. I would appreciate that. I know. 38 minutes to dock. The station lights came on as they approached, white and steady, the automated welcome sequence. Cole, Sorel said. He looked at her. She reached into the pocket of her uniform jacket, the one Zara had cleaned and returned to her yesterday, and took out a small flat chip Velthari military standard issue and held it out to him. He took it. It was warm from her pocket. My direct contact frequency, she said. Not the official embassy line, mine. He turned the chip over in his fingers. If you are ever in Velthari space, she said, very precisely, very carefully, and you require assistance. I'll use it, he said. Good. She looked at the chip, at his hand, at him. And if you are never in Velthari space? I travel, he said. It happens. Yes, she said. I thought it might. Zara brought them into the docking approach. The station filled the forward display. The Velthari diplomatic team was already visible on the external cameras. 3 officials in formal uniform, waiting at the dock. Surreal straightened her jacket, squared her shoulders, became the commander, fully, the seam invisible. Then she looked at Cole one more time, and for just that moment, she was still the person who had held on to the front of his jacket in her sleep and said, I do not understand you, like it was something she was not ready to stop trying to solve. Thank you, she said. For the bed. He almost laughed. Anytime. She turned and walked to the airlock. Zara leaned back in the pilot's seat and said nothing for a moment. Then she said, You're going to be in Velthari space inside of 6 months. Probably. You're going to use an extremely flimsy excuse to justify it. Almost certainly. And you're not going to think about it too hard before you go. Zara, Cole said. Yeah. Dock the ship. She docked the ship, through the airlock window, visible for just a moment before the corridor angle took her away. Surreal Voss walked toward the officials waiting for her. She was straight and composed and correct. And just before she reached them, she glanced back. Cole was still at the window. She looked at him for exactly 1 second. Then she turned and was gone. Cole stood at the window for a moment in the quiet. The station hum was different from the ship hum. Lower, less personal. He turned the chip over in his fingers once more, then put it in his jacket pocket. Zara finished the docking sequence without comment. Cole went to roll up his tarp from the cargo bay floor. He would need somewhere else to sleep on the next leg. Maybe he would finally fix the bunk room cot frame he had been meaning to get to for 8 months. Maybe. He left the bunk room as it was. The ship smelled faintly of Velthari and something he did not have a word for. And Cole Harlan, the one who does not stop, stood in the doorway of his own room for a moment and understood, without examining it too closely, that 6 months was not very long at all. He closed the door. Outside, the station lights hummed. Inside, the chip sat warm in his pocket. He went to find Zara and ask about the next cargo run.